Hey, brothers and sisters, what's up? This is the Reluctant Nabi here with the part two on the Dr. Francis Cress Welsing series. All right, and she starts to draw some conclusions on this one, so pay attention carefully. All right, from her research and everything, this is something that we as Afro people need to come to grips with. All right, never mind the feelings of those that seek to oppress us. All right, in this way, since we are understanding that we are up against a people that are looking for genetic survival, that I can kind of understand and get with, right? I can understand that ideology. I can understand how it is so fraught with injustice. All right, but at least you get an understanding where that's coming from. What I cannot understand is how these people are aided by those who look like us. All right, so allow us to continue on with this series. All right, in this case, you already know what to do. Remember, you still take care of yourself and family first. All right, now let's continue with the breakdown.
See, black men may do many things. You've never heard telling history of a black man attacking a white man's genitals. It's no history. It's no history of people of color attacking white people's genitals. But there is global history of people who classify themselves as white attacking the genitals of non-white men. So you say, why? Because the brain computer wants to understand in depth so that it can move with greater power. So we say, why? And we end up with this. Here's the black man's genitals. Attack this and destroy this. Why? Because in the testicles is what? The genetic material. And the genetic material that can cause white annihilation. Do you understand? Doesn't it make sense?
Absolutely.
Makes sense to me. Now beyond that as the white collective looked at the black male and said, he has weapon that can destroy me. He has weapon that can cause me genetic annihilation. So the white brain computer said, I must create weapons that can do same thing. Must create weapon, can do same thing. Must create weapon. So indeed they did create a weapon. And if you look at, here is the lateral view of the male genitalia. Can you all see it?
Absolutely.
I'll ask for a model.
Absolutely.
All right, but look at this. Here's the front view of the male genitalia. Here is the lateral view. Turn the lateral view around 90 degrees and you have that. See, if you turn this around, just turn it. And then what is this but this? That's a gun. Do you see? Can you see that? Oh, wow, they can't see it.
Some models back.
Yes, I need a model. This. Does that help? The volunteer. They want to volunteer. Just imagine. Think of the man standing with no clothes on. You see his genitalia. You see two testicles and a phallus. Penis, okay? Now, a side view is like one testicle and phallus, and if you turn it around, you can see that it is the same as the gun. Are you with me? That side needs a model. Okay. Now, what does, within the white supremacy system and culture, what do they call the gun? Come on, class, this is a workshop. The great equalizer. Oh, do you understand? This then becomes equal to this. If he has a weapon, meaning the black male's genitalia, testicles, genetic material, that can cause white genetic annihilation, the white collective said, we will produce a gun that will be the equalizer. And the people who are by law allowed to carry the gun, anytime they see a black male and they think, I want to kill him, he can annihilate me, then they call it what? Justifiable homicide.
That's right, that's right.
Are you with me?
Absolutely.
All for the purpose, not of economics, but for the purpose of what? White genetic survival. Now, how does this then come down and impact on the family? But let me say before I go further that there is a lot of material. If you understand what I'm saying here, there are many things that you will understand about the white supremacy system and culture that you look at every day. Most people do not realize, see, we're getting ready to come around towards February. February 14th, Valentine's Day. The most important thing about Valentine's Day is that it's a day in the white supremacy system and culture in which they give out chocolate candy.
Well,
the white female likes the white male to give her chocolate candy. Now, as black females, you see, we follow, whatever they do, that's what we do. We want some chocolate candy too, without realizing that we already have our chocolate candy. Somebody's about to die. See, we don't understand that this Valentine, with all these little pieces of chocolate candy, how many of you read the newspaper around Valentine's Day and see where they're talking about, dark and erotic chocolate?
absolutely.
And did you ever say, why? What are they talking about? What they are talking about is that within the framework of the white supremacy system and culture, the white female describes her ideal mate as who? Tall, dark, and handsome.
Absolute.
Do you all understand? See, now, unfortunately, Marx couldn't help us get to this.
Absolute.
See, nor could Marx help us understand suntanning. Because while on the south side or the west side or wherever it is that we are as black people, children are learning before they learn to read. The darker you are, the uglier you are. The more color you are, the uglier you're supposed to be. Without our understanding that over on their side of town, they do what? They suntan. Why do they suntan? Because not according to Francis Welsing. According to them, they don't think that they look beautiful unless they have tried to make their skin dark. So like the children say, psych you out. When they suntan, see, everybody has cells in their skin called melanocytes. These melanocytes are supposed to produce that black pigment called melanin. If you have a deficiency of a particular enzyme called tyrosinase, the melanocytes will not produce melanin, and you will not have pigmentation. But you can take those melanocytes and bombard them with ultraviolet rays from the sun and force the melanocyte to try to produce a little tyrosinase and then go forward to produce melanin. But that kind of mistreatment of those cells in an unprotected state will cause cancer. But people who are classified as white, I've read in the Time magazine where they say, I don't care if I get cancer. At least I will be a good-looking corpse. You see, but in the meantime, because we did not understand their psyche, we did not understand what the fundamental issue that drives the whole construction of a culture. We didn't understand that they were feeling numerically inadequate, genetically deficient in terms of skin coloration, and so they produced this culture that oppressed non-white people all over the world. We didn't understand it, and we didn't understand them, and so our ability to relate to them has been impaired. We thought it was all about everybody get together, everybody integrate, little black boys and little white girls and little white boys and little black girls, and everybody integrate together. But we had a very great scientist whose name was Dr. Martin Luther King, who conducted a very important and profound experiment. He said, I believe it's a question of love. If we can show them how to love, I think it will change their behavior. But he did not understand the fear of white genetic annihilation, and he did not understand that if everybody loved, that white would disappear.
Right.
And so Malcolm X, he also was a great political scientist who conducted an experiment, but he was talking about not love. He was thinking about the bullet, so he had to be eliminated. But Dr. Martin Luther King, who talked about love, and because that would lead to white genetic annihilation, he was also killed. Do you understand? Now, it is of critical importance that we understand this is the issue. How do I know further that this is the issue? How many people know the game of billiards or pool? Everybody in Chicago knows. Come on, don't you all know that game? Sure you know billiards and pool. What is that game about?
Balls.
That game is about white supremacy, but most people don't understand it. A white ball and a whole lot of colored balls are on the table. The white ball knocks all the colored balls under the table. Isn't that the game? But somebody thought that that game was entertainment in the abstract. Nothing occurs in the abstract. Everything that is occurring on this planet today is related to white supremacy. Everything. Everything is related to white supremacy. So as people who were in knowledge about what was going on, as they played the game of billiards or pool, it was going into the white psyche. White must remain on top, colored balls under the table. White must remain on top, colored balls under the table. White must remain on top. And we're just clowning in the pool hall and playing, talking about what's happening. It's just like many people in Chicago watch football, right? People in Chicago watch basketball. What are those games about? Those games also are about balls. And these are the balls that we're talking about. Aren't those balls? See, testicles are called balls.
Absolutely.
But when we thought balls, we said, oh no, this is just entertainment. And that's why it is reported that somebody interviewed Jimmy Connors, tennis star, and Arthur Ashe. And they was asking, well, what do you think about tennis? Jimmy Connors said, it's a matter of life and death. Arthur Ashe said, it's fun and games. And you see what I'm saying? Because they were coming from when Jimmy Connors is smashing that little white ball across that net with a white opponent. It means one thing to his psyche. It means quite a different thing to Arthur Ashe. But this is a culture that says what? Keep your eye on the ball. We think that they're talking about some basketball or football, period. No, they are talking about these balls. These balls that can cause white genetic annihilation.
Absolutely.
And that is why the ball games in this culture, and most people don't think about it, that there are two series of ball games. And I won't ask the audience, but the two series are what? Big brown and small white.
Absolutely.
See, now people play balls all the time and watch balls, but they don't really step back and say, what's going on here? And the reason that I got to this is that one Sunday in Washington, it was so quiet. And I like it to be quiet because you can really think when it's quiet. So I said, what's going on? And then it dawned on me, the ball game. So I said, wait, these ball games mean more than we think they mean. And that's how I understood this. The big brown balls are football, basketball, basketball, soccer. See, so that means underneath is black, it's got a little white covering on it. Okay. Bowling ball, small white. Tennis, golf, ping pong, baseball. Okay? But these are the basic ones. Now the men that are considered to be most virile play what games? Football and basketball, meaning they play with the big brown balls. I see a gentleman laughing so hard he can't write. But do you understand what I'm saying? See, this is symbolic activity. This is activity that goes on at the subconscious level of brain-computer functioning, where the brain is dealing with critical reality without talking about it on the surface. And so the white collective looks at the people who play with the big brown balls as being most virile. And it wasn't always that you had big brown men who were the masters of the big brown ball games. There was a time in which white males only were playing with the big brown and playing with the small white. But they also understood what it is that they were doing at the subconscious level. And look at where these big brown balls go. This big brown football goes into some white upright legs at the end of the field. And the basketball goes into a white net. And there are white females that dance along on the side. As the white females say, my ideal mate is tall, dark, and handsome with some dark balls. Do you understand? Now, the game that is played by the most powerful white males is what? Golf. Little tiny white ball, long stick, held in between legs. And he's trying to get this little ball in a hole in black Mother Earth. At the same time that within the white supremacy system and culture, white men say they are not men until they have had sexual intercourse with who? A black woman. Do you understand what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen?
Absolutely.
See, this is very important because if you don't understand, see, the reason that we're spacing around and quite can't get it together because we do not know the game that is on the table. We do not understand what actually is going on, but I can guarantee you the reason that a tiny minority of people on this planet can control the whole planet, it is because whether they speak Russian or whether they speak English, whether they say they are Republican or whether they say they are Democrat, or whether they say they are socialist or capitalist or communist, that is on the surface. The bottom fundamental line is white genetic survival. And that's what last week's activities were about in Washington. Because unbeknownst to many people, Mr. Gorbachev said, you've got problems with your black people, then why don't you put them in concentrated areas? Like we have our people. Yes. You don't see any of the non-white people that make up the majority of the people in the USSR, so-called. No, that was just one white brother who is in charge of that group of non-white people. so if you read your newspaper carefully, you will know that 1/3 of the Afghanistan people have been killed. Non-white people in the interest of white genetic survival. And so what we see is the big white brothers, the real biggies, now coming together to work more effectively together and stop wasting all this energy pretending that they are at war with one another. Because non-white people are twisting and turning in different places. And it is becoming increasingly difficult to maintain white supremacy for the purpose of global white genetic survival without just out front total cooperation. Now this is the thing that we have to understand. And as long as we don't understand it, I maintain we will be making big mistakes. That what we need to think about in the analogy that I'm using is that what we have to have in mind is the chessboard. The chessboard, anybody? On one side of the chessboard you have the white pieces. And on the other side of the chessboard you have the black pieces. This is not a game about integration. This is a game, it is not a game about hatred. It is a game in which white plays one side of the board and black plays the other. But what is the object of the game of chess?
Kill the king.
That's a B answer. C answer. The object of the game of chess is for the white king to checkmate the black king. Why? Because white always moves first. White always moves first. So that white is playing offense, defense, and black has to play defense, offense. But you can win chess playing the black side of the chessboard. You can't win it if you are thinking you can ask the white side to give you some points. You cannot win it if you think that the game is about the black king punching out the black queen or the black queen punching out the black king. You cannot win it if you think the job of the pawns is to punch out the bishops and for the queen to kill the knights. Anybody who is going to play championship level chess knows that the game is for black to focus on white and for white to focus on black. Do you understand? See how quiet it is? Oh, Jesus. Does that mean that we really are going to be required to get along with each other?
That's right.
Does it mean that we have to work together across the board?
Absolutely.
Yes, it does. This, to me, is the challenge that has been left by Harold Washington, because he showed by giving his life the level of struggle that has to be carried out if a black person is really going to do anything. The challenge that we are facing is whether can we look at the chessboard? Can we get comfortable playing the black side of the chessboard to victory? This is a side of the chessboard, let us say, that is playing for white supremacy for the purpose of white genetic survival. And this side of the chessboard has to play for justice. Not killing and destroying all white people, that's not what I'm talking about. But there must be neutralization of a minority of people on the planet controlling the majority. If you say that you understand what is happening in South Africa, that is a situation in people who classify themselves as white and 22 million black people. And when they say by any means necessary, we are going to maintain white power, otherwise we will lose our national identity, they are saying if we don't control the 22 million, that we will be genetically annihilated. But I can tell, see, the vibrations have gone down to almost zero in here. Yes, they are. And I'm going to tell you why they've gone down to zero. That once we are required to face up to what is happening, this is a very dangerous and deadly situation. Because it is my point of view that the AIDS virus was man-made. Man-made for what purpose? For the purpose of white genetic survival. Maintaining white supremacy is war that is conducted against black, brown, red, and yellow people for the purpose of white genetic survival. It is a deadly game of war. All people who were raised up under lynching and castration know how deadly it is. All the people who are standing on the corner without jobs, all the people who are treating their depression with heroin and cocaine or alcohol know how deadly it is. All the people who know through training that men who classify themselves as white do not permit non-white men to look at them straight in the eye.
Absolutely.
Beyond 4 seconds. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now I can feel the vibes. Why do we have to talk about this? You see what I'm saying? Because we would rather not have to face this. I don't want to face it. But the point is that I know I have to. My grandmother used to say about her husband, my father's mother, your grandfather was a race man. Your grandfather was a doctor, but your grandfather was a race man. Focusing on the issue of color. My father was a race man, focusing on the issue of color. And they didn't send me to school not to focus on the issue of color. No, we have to look at this. Because there is not one problem that is going to be solved. There's not a problem that is going to be solved in a black household between a man and a woman if they are not doing the Nelson and Winnie Mandela pattern. And what is the Nelson and Winnie Mandela pattern? They have been separated for how long? 26 years, 20-something years. But every time you hear their name, you think of them as being together. Because it's a black king and a black queen looking at the white side of the chessboard. In their respective locations. And what comes about as a result of that? See, if I'm just trying to play house, you understand? Whether it's male or female, just trying to play house, white supremacy is coming in the window. You think it's the hawk, that's white supremacy. Non-stop white supremacy, day and night, non-stop. And if there were some black men that would testify, you see, because we are being required to what? Face the truth. The truth is going to set us free.
Okay, I can understand how these individuals would want to take our accomplishments for themselves, like the pyramids. Okay, I can understand why these individuals would rather convince all the melanated that they're the pinnacle, even when in reality, people should realize otherwise. All right, I can understand that. All right, but I cannot understand how those that seek to betray those that are going through so much injustice, and I cannot understand how they could live with themselves, and I cannot understand how they come to that logic, except that is a choice, because in many of us the heart is corrupt, and we would do that which is wrong, that we know is wrong, for a piece of forbidden fruit to lord over and keep injustice going. This is why I'm not concerned about who any of these give anything to, because at the end of the day, what's starting to happen is the biggest fear. A bunch of Afro men have decided it is better to leave well enough alone and venture out to create balance, or put balance back in this melanated world. All right. But in the meantime, the very people that have betrayed the righteous are going to have the wall to hit. And as everything turns in on them, there'll be no one there to lend a hand to pull them up, because it's the same hand they bit before the wall hit. With that said, I'm out.